Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. The end goal of Legion is not on Azeroth, it is on Argus. The homeworld of the Eridar and one of the Legion's key strongholds throughout the galaxy, Argus is the focus of Legion's next major patch, patch 7.3. Today I'm going to be going over all that you need to know about Argus, the history of the planet itself, the history of the people who lived on it, and just about all of the details that we currently know. So, let's jump right into it. Argus is one of the planets in the Great Dark Beyond, which is really just a floofy way of saying it's in space. Now, where Warcraft gets a bit strange is it's got the Twisting Nether, which has actually went through a few different variations in the game's canon. It's easiest to think of it as a sort of other plane of existence separated from yet linked to the material realm, which contains the Great Dark, and all of the planets, of course, that we know of. One can draw from the Twisting Nether for magical purposes, or indeed use it to travel. The separation of normal space and the Twisting Nether is particularly weak at Argus in the current day, which has saturated the planet with energy and has been corrupting the planet's surface. We don't know really where Argus is located spatially though, but traveling to and from there is possible, both using regular portals or using whatever type of faster-than-light travel is used by the Legion spaceships, and of course the Draenei ships as well, such as the Exodar and Tempest Keep. The planet itself seems to be quite fantastical though. It's got giant crystalline mountains, it's got seas that shimmer, and its colour palette does seem to get quite fantastical as hinted by the Purple Hills of Macquarie, which is a Legion artifact power item that gives you just a little bit of backstory and flavour. The Rise of the Horde novel describes other elements of Argus as being what you would expect. You know, all of the regular biomes and things that you would find on Earth, or indeed a planet like Azeroth. Of course, Warcraft planets often do contain hidden depths. Azeroth contains a Titan world soul, one of the most powerful ones in existence. If Argus does, or perhaps did, contain something of similar power, then I'm sure that could be a plot point of patch 7.3. Argus itself was inhabited by a race called the Eridar. Extremely proficient in magic and seemingly also in science, they created a utopian society complete with massive gleaming cities adorned with gems that were apparently very common on their planet. One of the main settlements on this planet was, of course, Macquarie, which we'd mentioned earlier. It seems to have been of great significance to the Eridar on a civilizational sort of level, but also a spiritual level. The civilization itself, though, was peaceful and tranquil, seemingly spared from constant war, but of course, it's Warcraft and that would not last. So the Eridar were led by the second Doomvirate, I think I'm kind of shooting from the hip with pronunciation, which was basically Velen and Kil'jaeden. They had been best friends growing up, and with a mixture of Velen's wisdom and Kil'jaeden's cunning, eventually it saw the two of them rising up and leading their people. Now, Archimonde was actually the apprentice of Thal'kiel, who himself led a group of mages called the Wakeners. Now, his lust for power led to him, of course, summoning demons, which was initially an attempt to impress the leadership. This did not work, and he was banned from summoning demons again. Apparently quite a naughty thing. Throwing caution to the wind, though, he experimented more with demonic magic, and he hatched a plan to eliminate the leadership and install himself as the leader of the Eridar. Archimonde, though, was an ambitious fellow. He slipped away and informed Velen and Kil'jaeden. Thal'kiel eventually played his hand, but he was quickly crushed, with Archimonde eventually decapitating him. Not a good end for him. It was then decided to burn all of their research, with Archimonde heading up that operation. Now, this really put him on the map, and after a few years, he joined Kil'jaeden and Velen as the leaders of the Draenei. So around this time, Sargeras was searching for ways to further increase his power with the Legion. He came across the Eridar, of course, and he was impressed by their magical prowess. It's important to note that before this, the only races that were part of the Legion were not sentient, so bringing an intelligent race into the fold, it was certainly a risky move, but he knew it was one that he would need to do if he was going to be able to properly delegate power and have an effective army that could fight on multiple fronts. Sargeras promised a universal utopia and a deeper knowledge of how the world worked. Kil'jaeden and Archimonde were pretty much sold on this, but Velen, who had the power of foresight, had a vision showing his people twisted into demonic forms. It wasn't enough to convince the others, though, and a pact with the Legion was formed. It's worth jumping in here to mention that there has been an important development. Sargeras is not purely evil for the sake of it. He is driven by a desire to defeat the Void Lords, who are the creators of the Old Gods, as they seem to be the overall threat to the sort of universe as a whole. Now, it's possible that an understanding of this threat could have made Kil'jaeden and Archimonde more okay with joining up with him. But anyway, back to the story at hand. Velen knew that he, and those who thought like him, would have to flee the planet. Nowhere there would have been safe for them. Things were looking very desperate indeed, but then something strange happened. An Atamal crystal began to float, and Velen heard a voice. It was Kuur, who was a Naru. Now, Kuur explained what a Naru was, and that the Naru opposed the Legion. The Atamal crystal was actually a gift to the ancient Eredar from the Naru, and it could be used as a beacon. So, Velen and his followers fled to a location specified by Kuur, and were barely rescued in the Genedar, which is a Naru dimensional fortress. Simply put, a spaceship that mainly travels through the twisting nether rather than sort of regular space. They then renamed themselves to the Draenei, which meant exiled ones in their native tongue, and spent thousands of years on the run before crash landing on Draenor. They did very well for themselves there, of course, founding cities like Shattrath, but they were eventually found by Kil'jaeden, who had vowed to hunt the Draenei through the stars after being enraged at Velen going against them. He manipulated the orcs into wiping them out, and then during the backstory of the Burning Legion expansion, the survivors ended up taking over the Exodar and piloting it to Azeroth, where they then, of course, crash landed. And that's pretty much most of the story with the setup of the Eredar and the Draenei. As for Argus itself, well, it's no longer the gleaming utopia that it once was. It's bathed in fell energy from the twisting nether. Its cities are now black and green and wholly corrupted by the Legion, and really the planet itself is just transformed into the seat of power of the Legion, primarily ruled by Kil'jaeden. We don't really know where Sargeras actually is. The planet itself has got fell fissures likely thousands of kilometers long and hundreds wide. The shimmering seas have been replaced by fell goo. Lava, I don't know really what you'd call it. I'm sure posh people use as a face mask. Anyway, its strange location with the Twisting Nether makes it interesting. The Twisting Nether gives it access to multiple dimensions and timelines, which seems to have been what allowed actual Archimonde to access alternate Draenor in the Warlords of Draenor expansion, but really, I would not bother thinking about the implications there. It's pretty clear the Blizzard didn't, and it's very bizarre indeed. In more recent times, the planet seems to have had a massive chunk of its landmass destroyed, thrust out towards space, according to the art anyway. Why? Well, we have no idea. Perhaps a weapons test went wrong? Maybe Sargeras lost his temper? I mean, the guy does seem to have a thing for just cleaving planets. We don't really know what the name of the Legion's capital city on the planet is, but we do know that it contains two massive palaces for Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, where they would have been ruling the planet for. And that really is most of Argus itself covered, but next we need to talk about Illyria, Tyrolean, and the Army of the Light. This topic really deserves its own video, but I'm going to tell you what's important here. Illyria and Tyrolean are two people who fought in the Second War and eventually went through the Dark Portal in Warcraft 2's expansion. At the end of the expansion, they escaped death by jumping into a twisting nether portal to avoid a massive explosion that was caused by Ner'zhul's planet-destroying use of magic, which is what formed Outland. Now, the lore does get kind of strange here. Characters like Trollbane and Khadgar eventually returned to Honor Hold, and then, in the Burning Crusade, we picked them up and they joined us. Illyria and Tyrolean, though, were, of course, as famously hinted by the loading screen, nowhere to be seen. They then reappeared sort of in Legion. An artifact was sent to Azeroth called Light's Heart. We eventually learned that it was a message from Tyrolean. He spoke of the ground war on Argus and how the Army of the Light, which he is one of the leaders of, is struggling. He said that Light's Heart was their final plea, and that getting it to us required a great sacrifice on their part. It eventually reached Velen, and it turned out that Light's Heart could only be unlocked by Oros, the Naru who is located inside the Exodar. Unfortunately, Oros was destroyed before Light's Heart could be unlocked. Velen then ordered Rumul to repair the Exodar, which would basically be making it ready for the trip back to Argus. Now, one of the Army of the Light's most senior members, the Dread Lord Loxrathian, was sent to Azeroth by Tyrolean. Now, Loxrathian served as a High Commander in the Army of the Light, and he was tasked with helping us on Azeroth to fight the Legion, presumably so that we would be able to make that journey to Argus. So while we know that Tyrolean is still alive, Illyria is a bit more of a mystery. We know that she was, at some point, probably recently, captured by the Legion, as shown by the Marksmanship Hunter Artifact Weapon Acquisition quest. Now, I think it's pretty likely that patch 7.3 is going to involve us finding out what's actually happened to her. Now, another interesting tidbit here is that time operates differently in the Twisting Nether. Tyrolean and Illyria actually spent thousands of years fighting the Legion, according to what he says in a message from Light's heart that's coded so that it would only play for his son. But yeah, they'd spent thousands of years fighting the Legion, which again just points to the Twisting Nether and indeed the entire timeline just being, a little bit spooky. So the Army of the Light is likely then full of members of the Alliance Expedition from Warcraft 2 and then the Naru, along with many rebel factions of the various races that we know serve the Legion. We do know that they have at least one Dreadlord in their ranks, so perhaps we might even see some renegade Eridar as well. Seeing some new races would be fantastic, but I kind of think it's unlikely. And that's pretty much the crux of it for Argus. It is the home of the Draenei, who themselves are outcasts of the Eridar, who are the backbone of the Legion's command structure. All in all, it seems like quite the setting, even for a full expansion, though as far as we know, it will only be a part of patch 7.3. I definitely think, though, that the future of the Legion expansion, at least from the lore and setting kind of angle, is looking very strong with what a patch set in this location could actually bring to us. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.